Hello there, my fair listeners. How are you today? This is Jim the Keys bartender coming to you from Key Largo. A nice, cool, sunny day. I got to get out there. I'm going to start recording early. But I have just when you wake up and the weather's cool in the morning, the sun comes up and gets in the upper 70s. What am I saying? It's just beautiful, warm afternoon. Once you do things here like go to the water, go on the water, go kayaking, fishing, paddle boarding, day drinking. I'm not day drinking anymore. I don't feel the. You know what? I wish I could, but I mean, it just didn't work out for me. And you've heard all that, but it is fun to go outside as long as you have plans for transporting yourself. But I look to a future of enjoying other things and spending my time doing the podcast and the other things I need to do, especially my family, right? But I wanted to talk about things that happen in the bar now. It is Keith's Bartender Show, so what we had recently, I've had with season coming up, we had people coming in and asking the normal questions. What's there to do here? Where can we go? If it's cold and stuff like that. What places are open late? And you'd heard my answer before. Key Largo is much of it, being a fishing town. A lot of people are up and at it early, and they don't tend to sleep in. So people are starting, when they say early, they're starting early to be drinking. And they're out there fishing or out on the boat and things like that. It's, me on the weekends, you get people to stay a little later. You got some people that don't do any of that stuff, and they do want to stay out till 10, 11 o'clock every night. I used to stay out till 1 o'clock every night. I could go out. It's just one of those things. And I'm happy to oblige some of those people, but a lot of people have things to do around here. Early in the morning. And some of these guests got to get up. They want to get up early and hit the road. And they go south and they say, well, how long is it going to take? How long is it a ride to Key West? And we always think, well, you explain the mile markers to them and say, we're at mile marker 102, so you're leaving from here. It's 102 miles till the end of it. I mean, actually, it's 199 miles before you get in Key West. But, there's 43 bridges. The highway goes from 4 lanes to 2 lanes. The temperature drops. The speed limit drops down to 35 in Big Pine Key or Deer Key at night, and in when the schools are letting out, you got school zones, you got buses, you got traffic jams. We got one drawbridge in Alvarado that opens on the hour. So there's a whole bunch of reasons why, because it's a 100-mile drive, that you're not going to be averaging 55 and making it under 2 hours. Now, some people think they will be doing it, but just remember this: when you're driving down here, you should be enjoying your view, enjoying your time driving here. It's not one of those things where you want to speed through. I mean, there's a couple places where it gets kind of scrubby on some of the keys. When I say scrubby, scrub trees and bushes and things like that. A little depressing. But then when you hit these bridges, oh my God, that's why I always suggest to take 2 drivers with you. And a designated driver, and maybe even a designated driver, maybe 3 drivers, or 2 designated drivers. There's a whole mix you could do, because a lot of people are stopping on your way. Please do not stop on a bridge to take a picture, but some people are just overwhelmed when they're driving. They're not used to seeing. I'm sure there's a lot of bridges like that. You got the Golden Gate Bridge and all that stuff, and you just want to stop and take a picture. You see, heading south here on the right side, you got Florida Bay. On the left side, you have Atlantic. You got this beautiful blue expanse there. You see some boats. You can see, as you get south of Marathon, you'll see the old railroad bridge, the Flagler Railroad, and you'll see some of the old highway. You'll see some things that would have seen in License to Kill, the movie License to Kill, or True Lies, the Arnold Schwarzenegger movie, and you'll just want to stop. It's just a beautiful sight to see. And there are places to stop before you go to a bridge, after you go to a bridge, but once you're on the bridge, I wouldn't make that decision there, because there's all sorts of people out there driving, and they're not always the most patient. And I did mention previously a different one. If you are dependent on the tourism industry down here, it pays to be patient with people. Maybe not coddle bad behavior. I always suggest not to coddle bad behavior. Fuck that shit. But some people they're very excited about being down here. They dreamt about being down here. This is their Disney World, their thing. They always wanted to get down their keys, and they get down here, and sometimes their thinking doesn't go right. So when you are driving south, you're heading from Key Largo, you either head very early in the morning, if you're time sensitive, very early, so you could beat all the schools and all the business traffic. But if you are sightseeing this time of year, you may want to, if you're waiting after sun up, if you don't want to be stuck in traffic, because it kind of sucks. Because the places you're going to get stuck in traffic a lot of times are where there's nothing to see. You're looking at trees on either side. It's still a lovely view, but it's nothing compared to being on one of the bridges. So I always suggest between 8:30 a.m. and 10 a.m. To leave Key Largo, because that gets you south of Marathon before 12 noon. Because 12 noon is something like that lunch crowd when you got people coming back and forth, and you want to give yourself time traveling over 100 miles. But like I said, there's going to be people slowing down, people making left turns. Be cognizant of what the people are doing. I'm going to go over a little later about a horrible accident that happened here. I know. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. There's horrible things that happen in paradise sometimes. We're not immune to it, because there's assholes everywhere. They permeate society. So you need to be cognizant of where you're going. You got to pick out the places you want to stop, because once you get on a place like the 7 Mile Bridge, you're not turning around. So if you want to stop at, I'm just going to pick one place right next to the 7 Mile Bridge, and that's the Sunset Grill in Marathon. It's beautiful. It's on the Atlantic side. It's a big tiki bar. It's spread out. It gives you a nice southerly exposure, or I guess southwest exposure to the Atlantic Ocean, and you can kind of see under the bridge over to Florida Bay, and it's just wonderful. Like there are rental properties, I'm sure, right near there. If that's all you want to do is hang out, be on the water, and you heard in previous episodes, there's not a lot of beaches down here, but if you want to be on a boat, be on the water, be next to the water, that is a beautiful place to be. But you have to stop there, particularly before you go over the bridge. Otherwise, you're going to be, that's a 25, 30-minute round trip to get down, get to the end of the 7 mile. Once you get on the 7 Mile Bridge and you realize you went past it, there's nothing you can do until you get to the other side, and then you got to make your turn and come back. So they got people, you ever seen that on the highway when some of people miss an exit? I mean, they shouldn't be doing that anymore, missing an exit when you're where you are nowadays, because you could just get off at the next exit and work your way back. But stopping on a highway or any crowded thoroughfare is foolhardy. Just wait for your next chance. The 20 minutes of going over the 7 Mile Bridge, you get to see it both times. That's an added, you'll go over it 3 times. You'll go south, you're going to head north, and you're going to stop at Sunset Grill, and then you're going to go south again. So maybe someone will be driving. But you should, if you're going to go someplace like that, like I said, usually designate a driver. I'm going to go over that too. Recently, last week, we've had, and you've seen them on your highways where you're from, at least here in the United States. you get some zealous, I was going to say, motorcyclists, and they'll get on their rice rockets, right? And they'll be flying down the highway at 100 miles an hour, bypassing traffic, splitting the lanes. Splitting the lanes in a traffic jam, I understand, is different than splitting the lanes when the law for speed limit is 45, 50, 55 miles an hour and going 80, 90, 100 miles an hour, and that's just because you can. Well, we had 3 people heading, I'm going to have to say they were heading north or heading south. It doesn't really matter, does it? I think they were heading north, and they were traveling at a high rate of speed, a very high rate of speed. They said they were passing at least double the speed limit, and they were passing on the, I think it was mile marker 96, and someone was pulling out on the road. Now, if you've taken driver lessons, you're expecting if someone's 100 yards away and they're going 45 miles an hour or 50 miles an hour, 55 miles an hour, you expect to have a certain amount of time to merge into traffic. Well, what happened is these guys were swerving around, coming down, these motorcycles going at a high rate of speed. One guy hit an SUV going so fast, he injected himself into the vehicle. Now, I think it was one of those crossovers, smaller SUVs, but caused it to turn over and burst into flames, killing the occupants of that vehicle and the motorcyclists. And the 2 companion motorcyclists, whether he just joined up with them, or they were together, continued on north, which I don't understand. It was a mile marker 96, so that meant they had 30 miles to apprehend these people. I mean, at least they're witnesses. Why they would have taken off, I have no idea, but they would have had at least, even if they were going some enormous rate of speed, let's pick something like 180 miles an hour, right? Which is crazy, you can't, they wouldn't have survived. But even if they were going, they still had 10 minutes, but chances are they probably went 20 miles an hour. They probably they probably went maybe less than twice the speed limit to get off the island. So because of this type of, and that would happen on almost any road, people, just because you can go at a high rate of speed and you have a maneuverable vehicle such as a motorcycle, being able to switch in between lines, you do not know what the guy in front of you is planning to do. And when you're going 120 miles an hour, and the speed limit's 60, the 60 mile per hour closure rate is, people aren't expecting that. When you're going 60 miles an hour in your vehicle and there's no one 100, 200 feet behind you, and you go over to the left lane, because that's where you're looking 100 to 200 feet behind you, and you figure you're going with the traffic, you don't expect the closure rate that much of a motorcycle that's coming up behind you, and that's what happened. But this one happened to a person pulling up the highway, and it's horrible. They're horrible things. You have these people with the bikes. We have bike paths on in a lot of places either side of the road, bike and walking path, and then we got a bike lane in the road. So a lot of times when you're crossing, it's a divided highway, people have to look across the highway to see oncoming traffic. They look at the southbound lane and the northbound lane. Let's say you're going south. They're going to look at the northbound lane if they're crossing from that side across. They got to look at the bike path north and south to see if someone's coming up and down, right? So there's 2, 3. Then across your way, you look at someone coming south. You look at 4 people across, and people on bikes, and people, there could be people standing. There's a lot of activity at certain places near some of the bars and restaurants where people park on the opposite side, so they're walking, and you have bikes, you have people crossing, and then you have people traveling at different rates of speed, and then you have trucks and SUVs pulling boats and trailers and tractor trailers supplying this thin line. So it's terrifying for some inexperienced drivers to get on the road. And we have young people that insist, they're 15 years old, they got to get their learner's permit, and they're learning down here. I mean, we always talk about the roads in Miami, stuff like that. The roads in Key Largo are incredible. It is only the 21st of January, and there's 7 people dead on the highways in Monroe County. 7 people dead, and the month is not even over. I assure you, it's probably going to be more people by the end of the month. So we could have like 100 people. For a town, for the Keys that are year-round residents, about 70,000 people. That's a lot of dead people on the highway. It's horrible. You always hear this stuff, like someone crossing on a bike. There's between here and Marathon. I'm going to try to pick this right. Between here and Marathon, which is about 50 miles, before you get into the city of Marathon, where there are traffic signals, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 6 traffic signals in 50 miles. And it's not like a highway when I call it a highway, because in some areas, every block there's an inlet to a street. So you have merging traffic coming. You don't have, there's not, in a lot of places, there's not long stretches where there's no merging traffic coming in. And there's trees and things like that, and bushes. And so you have obstructed views. So you got to be super careful when you're driving down here. You really do. I mean, I imagine it's a lot of different places, because this is a straight shot. You think it's got to be the easiest ride in the world. For a motorcyclist, there's leisure motorcyclists. I'm not saying motorcyclists are like this, but predominantly motorcyclists are polite and obey the road, especially long-term motorcyclists. Otherwise, they wouldn't be long-term. They would be short-term, meaning they would be dead by now, or at least seriously injured. So that's my word of advice. I know it's kind of a downer. I apologize. Well, back to the bar thing. 2 older men came in last night. And, it's funny when I say older men, older than me, right? You say, well, Jim, you're an old man. No, these guys had 20, 25 years on it. And sometimes it's the mileage, not the years. There's people that come in that are my age, and they feel like, holy shit. They hit every year. If the 57 years were steps, they fell down each one of the steps and hit it on their face and their heads. Right? That's what I mean. But these guys were older, and they had experienced life in a harder manner, I think. So they came in, and they live on the up in Central Florida now, but they used to live down in the Upper Keys, and they used to be regulars at the bar. I was bartending, and they were talking about it. And there was nobody at the bar at that time other than one of our other regulars who they recognized. One of the regulars, and she had several years ago lost her partner, and they knew her boyfriend better. He was an older man. They never got married. It's a shame, but he passed away 3 years ago. So it used to be the bar, the Catch Restaurant and Bar used to be the Paradise Pub in Key Largo. And it was somewhat of an oxymoron. Paradise Pub, it sounds like it would be one of those tropical bars and all that stuff. Well, what it was, it had windows and things like that, but it wasn't far off from that. It had pool tables for most of its existence until the last I'm going to say 10 years, 11 years, it only had a beer and wine license. And it had pool tables and quite the cast of characters. If I hear from these guys, they were talking about one particular bartender, happened to be a female, who absconded with money from the bar. It turned out they were, I guess, they didn't make deposits all the time. And I said, how much money could that be? How much money were you holding back to in a place that just has beer and wine and some pool tables and stuff like that? And they said it was over a matter of time she was stealing money. She's taking a little each time. And I have my own theory about that stuff too. Not theory about whether it's good to steal or not. It's always bad to steal, but the people that, when they choose to steal, when they steal big right before they leave, that they steal little so they don't get caught, and then right at the end they'll take credit cards and do all this stuff. And that's what actually ended up happening. And these guys are reminiscing, and uncharacteristically, they didn't talk about it. They weren't romanticizing it. They were talking about how it was and stuff like that. They weren't like these guys that come in and say, "Hey, you should put pool tables in," and I always get back to say, "Well, okay, so we had 3 pool tables, maybe 4. So you could, on a good night, if you're lucky, you would get about $80 profit from the pool tables, and some beers, maybe 200, right?" Well, no, when he's talking profit, maybe like 150 from that. So over the course, and if you average, let's say you average 100 over that, it's $3,000. The dining room tables, we're talking about 20 tables. And if you could average profit-wise, what you profit from them with the normal changeover from being open for about 10 hours, you could realize upwards of, let's say, $600 a day. That's just only $30 per table. And if you average two people, let's say 3 people per table, that's pretty good. Give them a couple drinks, and you get $600. So you're easily doubling or tripling it without the pool tables, and then you're taking away giving a bunch of drunk people weapons, which is the pool cue. Now, I love playing pool. I love playing pool. But as a business proposition, let's say if you were in a pool hall and if space wasn't so premium down here, the cost of space so premium, like if we were in Arcadia, Florida, where you could get 1,000 square feet or 2,000 square feet and put in 12 tables and have a bar and a dance floor and all that stuff, no problem. And you had enough people to fill them and make some money on it and stuff like that. It didn't cost a lot. Yeah, makes sense. But in a place like when it's slow, when you only have one person playing pool, you have 4 tables, you don't have anybody sitting down, and it's a cold day, and people, especially this time of year, and with COVID, so it kind of throws things off. You got people coming in and you want to sit and dine, and people that want to go outside. We have a little outside area with about 6-7 tables that could sit up to 10-12 people, as little as 2, and sit and enjoy a nice little garden outside. But a pool table just takes up space, and it only works for bars, I mean, the only pool table I know in the Upper Keys, besides before getting in Almirada, I think the Moose Clubs have it, the Elks Club, the Caribbean Club, CJ's, which is a bar, and that pool table at this one bar at mile marker 105. It's funny. You cannot, if you ever watch Seinfeld, when Mr. Costanza gets a pool table in George's old room, and the room is obviously too small from it, and they have to get short pool cues or use the maestro. There was a character called the maestro, and he uses baton, little conductor's baton to conduct it. That's pretty much what CJ's is with the pool table. You can't make all the shots, and sometimes I can't imagine, but I can imagine that people getting hit on the backstroke with a pool cue when they're sitting at the bar, which in retrospect has to be kind of fucking funny, but that's neither here nor there. So they're talking, these two men are talking about the old days and talking about the guys who were managers and the people were there, and then they weren't wistful as much, they were just talking. They didn't say, a lot of times when people reminisce, they pretend that the bygone era was much better. They didn't do that thing. Now, I first got down here 14 years ago, and as a listener, if you're a regular listener, I got sober after 3 months being down here. I was out for a couple of years since then, but in the beginning, first 7 years down here, I was sober, and I would every so often look for different places to go because I was recently single. I was divorced, didn't have any, I was just back in the dating world. A couple times I had ongoing relationships. Other times I was just kind of like playing it fast and loose. Not too fast and loose, but that as much as you can down here. And in season, yeah, you can meet someone, go out, stuff like that. It's great because there's tons of people down here. Women like to go on vacation together, and every so often they want to go out without their friends, or they come down here for extended vacation. I met some women who were working remotely. That was good. Or people that were, seasonal renters. They come down and work for a short time, become training to be a dive instructor and things like that. But in between that, like in off season, in the beginning, all I knew was about going to different bars, and I was checking out. I had gone to CJ's, and CJ's was a good place, but the women were a lot younger. I was 44, and a lot of girls were in their early 20s. Not that I didn't like girls in their early 20s and stuff like that, but I didn't enjoy the imagery or anything like that. The imagery of being a creepy old guy and going for that. And I realized my demographic was more of 30s on up. So I was working down the street in Key Largo at a really nice place called the Encore Fish House next to the main restaurant. The Fish House is right next door. But afterwards, I decided to stop on in. I said, let me check this place out. I've never been in it. And I really never heard much about it, but it was there and it was never crowded. And I'm thinking, maybe it's like a cocktail bar and stuff like that. And there's some women in there I could sit and have a club soda or ginger ale or something like that. I walked in this place, the Paradise Pub. I walked in the door. It wasn't filthy. It wasn't like a dirt thing, but it was nighttime. It was dark. And everyone was kind of slumped over. And I walked in like 3-4 feet, looked around. I don't know if there was anybody behind the bar, but no one said anything to me, which didn't concern me because I was happy they didn't, because that would have put me in an awkward position. I looked around. I gotta describe it looked like a mushroom farm, meaning just nothing going on. People have a couple beers, maybe a wine in front of them, or it's kind of walking in. It's kind of one of those things that distaste, meaning you walk in. If you were growing up and you live with an older relative, like a grandparent, and you accidentally walked in on them in a state of undress. Or to put it more bluntly, if you went to the zoo and you decided it would be amusing and probably the best part of the trip to go to the primate exhibit, take a look at the frolicking monkeys. And when you go there, you just see a shocking display of masturbating and poop throwing. It was just, oh my God, this is not what I was looking for. I mean, the imagery, there weren't masturbating and poop throwing at the Paradise, but it wasn't what I was expecting. And that was the last time I walked in there until they converted to a restaurant. Got a bar in there, but I wasn't drinking at the time. But they served burgers then. They had one of these things where they had someone in the kitchen, or I don't know if the bartender cooked or not, because it didn't seem to be that busy. I don't know how you stay open with stuff like that. So it was radically different. And then when they eventually, the new owners took over, it became a regular family restaurant with a bar. It's tough running a bar family restaurant because you got people, every so often women want to show their boobs, but then you got like a 7-year-old kid sitting over there. So the keys, it's the fucking keys. So what are you going to do? And someday in the future, there's going to be like someone who's middle to older age person will be talking about the catch in the old days. And I wonder what they're going to be saying about me. There was this crazy bartender there and stuff like that. Sometimes he didn't drink and stuff like that, and he kind of lose his shit. He was a little intense. Sometimes he would lose his shit over something. It was funny. We say kind of weird shit. Someone actually said it was before I went away to have my operation. A night I wasn't working. Tuesday and Thursday nights I don't work. So if you don't like me, that's the night to go there to the Catch restaurant. Otherwise, if you don't have a problem with me, enjoy me every other night. Someone was saying something at the bar, and there was regulars there, and someone said, "That's some crazy shit," Jim would say, and I was not in the least bit insulted by that. I was not in the least bit insulted by that. I really kind of enjoyed it. And people say, being behind the bar is just waiting for a rejoindre. I think that's the French word. Rejoindre is a comeback for some crazy stuff. So I took it as a compliment. Well, I'm going to thank you guys for listening. I got to thank my local listeners. About 40% of the people that listen are from South Florida and the Keys, or Central Florida. So we have Miami, Orlando, Tampa, St. Pete, Key West, Marathon, Key Largo, Islamorada, Tavernier, Homestead, Fort Lauderdale. Thank you. We have places out of the area, the urban centers. I'm assuming it's people that are Keys aficionados, or people that like the Keys. So that would be Atlanta, Chicago, Philadelphia, Boston, New York City, Charleston, Raleigh, Savannah, the Midwest. We got a lot of people in the Midwest. I did mention that was Chicago, but we have Cleveland, Cincinnati, Pittsburgh. It's funny, we talk about the East Coast, but Pittsburgh's kind of on Western Pennsylvania, so kind of falls in between the two of them. Philadelphia's East Coast, Midwest. And you always think the Midwest would be, when you're talking about the United States, the Midwest, shouldn't that be about 1,500 miles in, not 600-700 miles in? But it's Midwest considering what the western frontier of the United States used to be. Oh, I am doing my bullshit again. Where, history's crap. I also like to thank my international listeners in India, Vietnam, Russia, Finland, Norway, Netherlands, United Kingdom, Belgium, Germany, Poland. I think a lot of Poland, because I met people when I was at the wedding, and I told them, and they understand English enough. I don't know how they understand this. People have told me that are native speakers of English, that they find it hard to follow my train of thought. So I can't imagine what it would be like in India. And the people in India may be a little, if you're thinking you're going to get some idioms on how to speak to, you do not want to speak like I speak to you, because they're going to find it very strange. Because people find it strange for me. I think they'd find it strange if someone, if someone learned English from me. Well, not that you're learning English, but American English. I imagine that's the thing. So if you're, working at a call center, I don't know if you'd actually want to adopt my style of talking. Because you could be sitting there in the middle of it and someone's calling up the Dell helpline, and you pick up and you say, my wife, and you go and say some stupid shit about their wife, and it's like, you don't sound like a person that's married. Something like that, where it's awkward. Try to avoid that. But I don't know how I got here from there when I meant to thank my listeners. Thank you for listening. Please share with your friends. Please like us on Facebook, Instagram, Tumblr. Follow us on Tumblr. If you're on Tumblr, I'm trying to join a group. I know discussions go better on Tumblr because it's more suited to blogging. So I don't know how much time I have. I should do my blog. I should do a blog and get rid of some of the stupid ideas I have before I decide to impart them on the podcast. And also, we are looking for sponsors. I just started this week. We're going to get a sponsor. We're going to upgrade the show. I have my coronavirus first shot, Pfizer shot, and I'm hoping to get the second one on February 9th, and then I'll feel more comfortable going out without being a person that spreads COVID-19. And I hope everyone else is doing all right too. Be careful out there. And thank you for listening. This is Jim the Keys Bartender signing out. We're coming back to you with our music again. Okay? Thank you. Bye.